Patricia. Thanks for talking with us today. Could you talk to us about your perspective as a family member or a caregiving person in your relationship with your husband and the healthcare system, and give us some pearls of wisdom that you would like healthcare professionals to know about the importance of actively partnering with families?
About 15 years ago, my husband and I knew he was struggling, and we made an appointment with our family physician. She recognized at the time that he was suicidal and sent us to the hospital. I have to say at the time, it was a shock for me and my family. We had never had experience with that in our immediate family. And I have to give credit to my family physician, because through the journey with my husband over the years, she would check in with me and say, "How are you doing?" And that was so important to me in retrospect, that she asked that. First time she asked me that, I wondered, but in retrospect, I realized how important that was. As a caregiver, so important that you're doing well, or you won't be able to look after the person who's not well. Similarly, at work, I was very fortunate. I report to physician leaders, and when I knew the journey would be longer than I anticipated, I reached out to them and said what Tom's situation was, and one of them said, "Family first," and the other one said, "Oh, that's difficult." And in retrospect, again, those words of support at a time when I was trying to work full-time, had 2 young children, were so important to me. Now, I'm an optimist. I'll admit that about myself, and I'll also admit that I'm in the healthcare industry. I'm in administration and leadership role. So with all of that background, not everything was sunshine and roses for me. I know that we had some less than positive experiences when Tom was first admitted into hospital. One of the caregivers said to us, and we were still reeling with the diagnosis and what his situation was, said, "Well, don't expect to be able to stay here too long." And we looked confused. She had assumed that Tom and I were poor means and that we thought this was a great place for him to have a clean bed and a meal. And I think at the time I was less offended personally, because I'm a bit of an empath, to say, wow, what if I was in that situation? And that's what somebody said to me. So that would be the first thing I would say to healthcare professionals or their team. Be just mindful of your personal bias and realize that you are dealing with people and caregivers and families that are in shock, trying to process things, and just be mindful of that. Secondly, I would say that the caregiver is very important. And not only as a health professional, you might say you want to assess whether the person has support systems or a caregiver, but what I'm saying is you want to make sure the caregiver themselves and their family have supports, because if they're not able, if they're not coping, well, that'll surely affect the outcome of the patient themselves. And I have to say, Tom's physicians were very good that way. When I was able to attend appointments, which I was never made to feel that I shouldn't, they would tend to turn to me, not always ask me how I'm doing, but ask me for my input, and that was very important. I think I would also say that we're in an age where people want information. People want to have ideas of what's going to happen and the process. So I think that's very important as well.